You said you was high class, now that was just a lie. Well, you ain't ever caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. Trust me.
ticket to ride.
do right by me before she gets to saying goodbye. Sure to think twice, sure to do right by me.
Well, you heard about love and giving sight to the blind. My baby's loving cause the sun to shine. She my sweet little thing. She's my pride and joy. She my sweet little lady. I'm her little lover boy. I said I love my lady, heart and soul. Love like cows can never grow. She my sweet little thing. She's my pride and joy. Ooh, yeah. She my sweet little lady. I'm her little lover boy. I said I love my lady like the finest wine. Stick with her till the end of time. She my sweet little thing.
Love is like a bomb, baby, come on, get it on. Moving like a lover with the radar phone. Looking like a champ, like a video fan. Demolition woman, can I be your man? Hey! Rise Atlanta, tells Atlanta, flash a little light. Television lover, baby, go all night. Sometime, anytime, sugar me sweet. Little miss of innocent, sugar me, yeah! Hey, come on, take a bottle, break it up, break the bubble, break it up, pour some sugar on me. Ooh, in the name of love, pour some sugar on me. Come on, fire me up, pour your sugar on me. I can't get enough. I'm hot, sticky, sweet, from my head to my feet, yeah. Red light, yellow light, green light, go. Crazy little woman in a one-man show. You're a queen, man, a queen, rhythm of love. Sweet dreams, saccharine, loosen up. Hey!
What's the matter with the clothes I'm wearing? Can't you tell that your tie's too wide? Maybe I should buy some old tab collars. Welcome back to the age of jive. Where have you been hiding out lately, honey? Can't dress trashy till you spend a lot of money. Everybody's talking about the brand, it sound funny, but it's still rock and roll to me. What's the matter with the car I'm driving? Can't you tell that it's out of style? Should I get a set of white wall tires? Are you gonna cruise a miracle mile? Nowadays you can't be too sentimental. Your best bet's true, baby blue continental. Hot funk, cool punk, even if it's old junk, it's still rock and roll to me.
Oh, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York. Oh, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York. Manners make a man, and some will say he's the hero takes a man to suffer ignorance and smile. Be yourself, no matter what they say. Oh, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York. Oh, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York. What will you do when you're lonely? No one's waiting by your side. You've been running, hiding much too long. You know it's just your foolish pride. Hey, love, got me on my knees. Hey, love, begging, darling, please. Hey, love, darling, won't you ease my worried mind? Try to give you consolation. Your old man had let you down. Like a fool, I fell in love with you. You turned my whole world upside down. Hey, love, got me on my knees. Hey, love, begging, darling, please, hey, love.
Baby, this town rips the bones from your back. It's a death trap. It's a suicide rap. We gotta get out while we're still young. 'Cause tramps like us, baby, we were born to run. Wendy, let me in. I wanna be your friend. I wanna guard your dreams and visions. Just wrap your legs round these velvet rims and strap your hands across my engines. Together we could break this trap. We run till we drop. Baby, we'll never go back. Oh, if you walk with me out on the wide. 'Cause baby, I'm just a scared and lonely rider. But I gotta find out how it feels. I wanna know if love is wild, babe. I wanna know if love is real. Oh, take it now.
Hierdie WimTV show is nie geskik vir sensitiewe kykers of kinders jonger as 18 jaar. Die menings wat tydens die uitsending gelig word is slegs die van Wimpie, Semone en Stem. Dus is jy ingeskakel op eie risiko.
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn. It's showtime.
Hartlik goeienaand en welkom by nog 'n uitgawe van WimTV en so 'n bietjie nabetragtingsaantjie. Ons gaan so 'n bietjie kyk. Goeienaand toe Nati, good evening, are you well? Ek dink sy kan my hoor nie, Top-Hat, ons moet net vir my aanskakel dat sy vir my kan hoor. So welkom by nog 'n uitgawe van die WimTV show. Vanaand so 'n bietjie nabetragting op die Brackenfell storie. So ja, dit gaan 'n interessante aand wees. Ons gaan lekker daaroor chat. En lekker paneel. Ek wil goeienaand Andrei Gam, goeienaand toe Nati. I hope you guys are well. En Big Daddy, dis die eerste keer wat ons vir hom op WimTV het, so welkom aan boord. Ons gaan so 'n bietjie Brackenfell gesels ouens. Dit was 'n interessante week, 'n baie interessante Vrydag wat ons gehad het. En ons gaan so 'n bietjie chat oor alles wat gebeur het daar in Brackenfell, wat natuurlik ons hometown is. Ons is hier van Brackenfell af. So ons gaan vir julle alles vertel wat gebeur het uit ons oogpunt uit en dit wat ons gesien gebeur het. En dan vir die deskundiges die vrae, daar's 'n paar interessante vrae dink ek. Nommer 1, ek wil graag weet uit 'n regsoogpunt uit net hoe
is dit moontlik?
'n regter ken 'n permit toe vir 100 mense, dan word daar 'n invite gestuur. Dis goed, ek kan my 5 beste pelle nooi na 'n party toe. En dan gaan adverteer ek op die radio en sê, hoorie, almal is welkom, maar net 5 mag kom.
Wat gaan jou vrou sê?
So, ons gaan 'n bietjie daaroor chat, en dan dit word toegestaan en dit kan die protesaksie kan gebeur en die skool se dringende hof aansoek word uitgestel na 'n maand daarna. I get it. Maar ons gaan daaroor praat met die ouens wat weet. So, ouder gewoonte, Andrei en Unati wat weet hoe die show werk. Ons begin altyd met 'n sang van die band af. En vir die van julle wat nie weet nie, die band bestaan uit Stanley, Justen, Hosken en natuurlik die nimmerlike Suid-Afrika se grootste rocker wat daar bestaan en nog steeds een van die mees talentvolle rockers in Suid-Afrika. Sy naam is Haze en dan is jy het vir Semone en jy het vir Stem en jy het myself. So ons is terug net hierna. Ons begin die show ouer gewoonte met die band en dan wanneer ons terugkom, dan is ons by die paneel wat alreeds hier by ons aangesluit het. Ons is nou by julle. Welkom aan boord. Hierdie is WimTV episode 14.
Gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good. It's gonna make a difference. Gonna make it right. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, this wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids on the street, not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their need? A summer disregard, a broken bottle top, and a one-man soul. They follow each other on the wind, you know, 'cause they got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know that I'm starting with the man in the mirror, and I'm asking him to change his ways. But no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. Na 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 na. Oh oh. Na 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 na. I've been a victim of a selfish kind of love. It's time that I realize that there are some with no home, not a nickel to loan. Could it be really me, pretending that you're not alone? A willow deeply scarred, somebody's broken heart, and a washed out dream. They follow the pattern of the wind, you see, 'cause they got no place to be. That's why I'm starting with me, and I'm talking with the man in the mirror, and I'm asking him to change his ways. But no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. You gotta stay on, you gotta stay on, you gotta to I'm gonna make a change for once in my life. I'm gonna make a change for once in my life.
Die Outdoor Warehouse Tydloos Rock Rewind neem jou terug na die afgelope 4 jaar se hoogtepunte van die Tydloos produksies. Na 11 uitverkoopte vertonings het ons besluit dis tyd om jou in die gemak van jou eie huis te bederf met 'n biltong sessie van die Tydloos Rock Show. Die akteurs Wynand, Heinrich, Albertus, Sukses, Christy en Jaco gaan jou laat skater van die lag, terwyl Justen, Natisha, Jolandi, Johan en ek Le-Lue gaan sorg vir die musiek saam met die Tydloos en WimTV band. Kaartjies vir hierdie aanlyn vertoning op Saterdag 28 November is beskikbaar by wimtv.net teen R55 per toestel. Rock on!
Is jy gatvol vir korrupsie,
There's a broken president in a broken country.
plaasmoorde, COVID-19, BLM en rasisme? Dan is jy op die regte plek. WimTV, ongesensord en onbeskaamd.
Welkom terug julle, lekker om die show mee af te skop met Michael Jackson. Thought for a second you were going to do black and white. So goeienaand aan die paneel, good evening to the panel. Unati, welcome back, it's nice to see you again, are you well?
I'm good, thank you. It's good to be back.
Yes, awesome, nice having you back. And then Big Daddy, do I call you Big Daddy because there's just something wrong with one guy calling another guy Big Daddy? It doesn't sound right to me.
Hey man, it's totally up to you. You can call me Sikhle or Big Daddy, but thanks for having me on.
Yes, awesome. Nice to have you on. You're a bit of an internet sensation, I see. And there's a lot of people that shared your videos with us at the radio station. So we thought it would be a good idea to get you on board as well. En dan André Galm, ou vriend van ons hierso by die WimTV show. Goeienaand André. Ek hoop dit gaan goed met jou. Is jy besig om aandete te eet dat jy dit wegsteek vir ons of wat gaan daaraan? Okay, jy het my gehad vir 'n oomblik. Welkom terug André, lekker om jou weer eens hier te hê. Ek gaan sommer begin, kom ons begin sommer by jou André. Die laaste keer wat ons gesels het, the last time we spoke about a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff that's happened now with the whole Brackenfell situation. En weet jy wat, het baie gevat vir ons om 'n bietjie op die map te kom, maar hier is ons nou, Brackenfell is hier. En Kersvader sê hulle is nie welkom hierdie jaar in Brackenfell met sy rooi pakkie nie, so ek weet nie wat gaan die arme kinders maak nie. Sê vir ons André, groot stories gewees die afgelope tyd daar by Brackenfell Hoërskool en ek weet daar was 'n beroep gewees op die Menseregte Kommissie aanvanklik om die storie te ondersoek van die privaat, kom ons neem dit nou maar, the private matric farewell wat oënskynlik gehou is, wat toe nou op die einde nie heeltemal lyk het vir my asof dit die waarheid was nie. Daar's die dame wat die funksie gereël het sê dit is nie so nie. Hoe het die menseregte aanvanklik, hoe het die Menseregte Kommissie aanvanklik betrokke geraak by die ding?
Ja, ons raak betrokke by aangeleenthede wanneer daar oënskynlik die moontlikheid is van menseregte skending, en dis hoe ons maar betrokke geraak het by die aangeleentheid ook. En ons het vandag 'n brief gestuur aan die Wes-Kaapse Onderwysdepartement, die skool en dis meer met die aantuigings wat gemaak word met betrekking tot die funksie. En hulle het nou die geleentheid om daarop te reageer, en ons het ook gevra vir 'n ontmoeting donderdag 2 uur by ons kantore in die Wes-Kaap in die verband. So ja, daar word bepaalde aantuigings gemaak. Niemand van ons weet in die stadium, nie julle of ons, wat presies die ware feite is nie, maar ons ondersoek dit en daarna sal ons na vore kom met baie spesifieke bevindings en aanbevelings of direktiewe oor wat moet gebeur.
Okay, kom ons gaan na kom ons beweeg na kom ons vergeet van Vrydag, kom ons gaan na Sondag toe. Ek is seker julle het sekerlik al klagtes gehad van ons vriend meneer Malema wat nou weer in is naughty, I know it's your big friend. Mr. Malema once again on Sunday seems like he incited violence against the police force. Wat André, wat moet die man nog sê dat daar teen hom opgetree kan word? Suksesvol.
Wel, ja, daar is 'n saak van haatspraak teen Julius Malema.
Hoeveel sake is daar nou teen hom?
Wel, as een wat ons aanhangig maak aan die Gelykheidshof in Johannesburg, teen hom oor sy assosiasie met sekere uitsprake van Robert Mugabe, wat Robert Mugabe gemaak het en wat hy toe herhaal het en in ons mening hom mee geassosieer het. Daar is ook die kwessie dat die EFF blykbaar weer Kiel de Boer, Kiel de Farmer gesing het by Brackenfell Hoërskool tydens een van hulle optogte. Daar is ook die Kiel de Boer, Kiel de Farmer beweringe wat gemaak word teen die EFF en ook spesifiek die Call the Fire Brigade lied wat blykbaar gesing is in Senekal. En ons kyk na al die aangeleenthede. Daar is 'n verwronge persepsie in die media, spesifiek die Afrikaanse media, dat ons om een of ander rede nie wil kyk na EFF aangeleenthede of Julius Malema nie, waar dit vandaan kom, weet nugter. Ons kyk na al hierdie aangeleenthede op grond van die meriete daarvan. En ons moet in ag neem hofuitsprake en dis meer en ons moet die reg op die feite toepas. En dit is wat die kommissie probeer doen. En daarom, wanneer daar sprake is van haatspraak, sal die kommissie daai aangeleenthede aanvat. En indien nodig, soos nou met die PAC, wat ons vandag aangekondig het, dat ons na die Gelykheidshof die PAC gaan vat oor hulle one settler, one bullet opmerkings, plakate en dis meer met betrekking tot Brackenfell. So sal ons doen met almal wat hulle aanspraak, wat hulle skuldig maak in ons opinie aan haatspraak, of dit nou die EFF, die Vryheidsfront Plus, die AfriForum of die ANC is.
Nati, I want to ask you, there's a perception that the EFF, here's the thing, there's a whole perception surrounding the EFF that they're just a bunch of troublemakers. So let's go to that, and let's say let's be fair, and let's say if I have a problem with anybody and I can just call racism, or I don't even have a problem with anyone. I've got someone in school, my son's in school or whatever, and I'm feeling I'm feeling the school has not treated my son fairly, and I can go to the newspaper, the EFF will pick it up, or I can go straight to the EFF, and the next thing you know, there's going to be a big march, and there's going to be millions of rands of damage, and etc. etc. It seems like the EFF is the go-to party or the go-to people if you want to cause havoc within a community. And it seems like the EFF is happy to play that role. Am I right in that perception?
Well, I don't know if I had a problem with anyone. They're the last people that I would ever call, because so far what we've seen with Julius Malema, he changes his mind every day. A few weeks ago, he was a friend of Peggy Taylor's and the police in Senekal. But now he's turned on police. And I don't want us to play. To ignore all these things that Malema is doing, because look at what is happening now in places like Kailicha, where I come from. Malema told people that they can grab any land that they want, and people are basically doing it. And during the lockdown, we've seen in Kailicha alone thousands and thousands of informal settlements, shack dwellers increasing. And people put shacks everywhere. They put shacks in wetlands. They put shacks where the sewage pumps going through. And it becomes the municipality's headache. And so that's why I'm saying we shouldn't ignore what he's saying. And it's unfortunate that Vekicele thought, the police themselves, we haven't seen much action that they take whenever EFF is involved. Think about the Clicks incidents where stores were really ransacked, and there was damage that was caused, and it costs money to rebuild everything. That whenever EFF has something to scratch, then they have to throw tantrums. And I don't know why people think that EFF is on their side. I just think Malema is smart enough to use certain incidents, and so people are fooled to actually believe that he's on their side. Tomorrow Malema can wake up and swear it's black lawyers. That's what he's also been doing as well, and calling them stupid and calling them unprofessional. And obviously we know not all lawyers can be stupid irrespective of their race. Lawyers can be cunning and can lose cases, even if they are sometimes brilliant lawyers. Each case should be judged on its merits. Yes. So people shouldn't ignore what he says, because it's dangerous, and it causes harm to other people. Where I am, we have properties that we bought, but now the problem is that sooner or later our properties will lose their value, because there are shacks everywhere in Kailicha, and there will be sewage because of the overcrowding. There will be sewage running on the streets, and it will continue to be a problem for the municipality of Cape Town. So I wish that people were smart enough to know that Malema is not on their side. He's just using them he's just using them to gain political points. You know how the media adores him, and also that's also unfortunate,
because he sells newspapers, and unfortunately, it's true. If you mention his name, there's immediately there's a lot of thoughts, and there's a lot of emotions. I'm going to go to Sishle. Can I call you Sishle? Or really, because the Big Daddy thing is a bit scary for me. Tell me from your point of view, obviously you've been watching what happened at Brackenfell. I know you were there as well. I saw one of the videos you posted about it. If you look at the whole situation, it was a protest. There was 100 people that were allowed, and I think from the beginning everybody knew there was no way there was only going to be 100 of them, or 100 protesters. So what we did was we spoke to Micaiah on the previous show, and we asked him, and I pertinently asked him on air, on radio as well. Do you guys understand 100 people and only 100 people are allowed to be there? And he positively affirmed that for me 3 times. So there can be no doubt about that. And the other thing is, there's a lot of people that saw the EFF go and canvass people for the march. If you know there's only 100 people allowed, is that not breaking the law intentionally?
Yeah, you see, you've got to understand the nature of the EFF. The EFF are classic fascists in nature, insofar as they happily see themselves and will demand their rights and their freedoms. In fact, they'll make every protestation possible, including playing victim when their rights are violated. But at the same time, work their butts off to limit and infringe the rights and freedoms of everybody else around them. It's classic fascism. It's using the very institutions of democracy, perverting them and then destroying them for everybody else. And you saw that. You saw that in what is now the score in Brackenfell. I'm keeping an unofficial score, like a soccer game. And the current score now, of course, is Brackenfell Parents / Community 3, and of course, EFF 0. But when it was that second goal, the incident before the large protest, that was the one which was very telling for me, where suddenly the EFF receive, and again, I'm not condoning the actions of the parents. But, people sort of make this false assertion and assumption that I like the sight or the thought of EFF members being beaten up. Of course not. Like, no one wants that, and no one wants to see any sort of violence especially in residential communities. I mean, it's unsightly, it's unseemly. But with that being said, I was not going to pretend that there wasn't a delicious irony in that entire situation of parents literally preempting the EFF's own conduct, the EFF's usual conduct when they hold peaceful protests. I wasn't going to pretend that the parents preempting that and then almost acting exactly like the EFF wasn't delicious irony. And the biggest irony, if I may, was the EFF then playing victim from that, absolutely milking it, and obviously marshalling their friends in the public intellectual spaces and their friends in the media to then sort of drum that narrative of, oh, look, the poor EFF, the peaceful protesters in inverted commas. Look at how they were treated by those, quote, racist Boere out in Brackenfell. Of course, the media lapped that up. But the irony was delicious because suddenly the EFF got a taste of their own medicine to a large extent. But let me circle back to the point. The point is that same EFF who often when they protest peacefully or resort to violence, intimidation, the wanton destruction of property, suddenly demanded their rights and demanded their freedoms and made a whole mission and a whole meal of that, whilst at the same time purposefully went out of their way to infringe upon the rights and the freedoms of others. For instance, imagine if you were a school kid going to Brackenfell High on that day. Can you imagine the sheer terror of the mental image of who the EFF is? You only have to think back, as Unati mentioned, to Clicks, to H&M, to any other incident. I mean, where they literally resort to absolute violence, and the wanton destruction of things. Imagine being a kid and then telling your mom on that day, Mom, maybe I don't want to go to school today because I don't know what will happen with the EFF rocking out. So to then suddenly have that same EFF, play victim, as was the case, especially aided, of course, by their friends in the mainstream media, to have that same EFF play victim was delicious irony. But as a final thought on this particular one, because I really want to dwell on the hypocrisy of this. That's the delicious thing of it. That very same EFF that called itself peaceful protesters, we respect the rights and the freedoms and the liberties, blah, blah, blah. As you mentioned on Sunday, the leader of that very same party, almost with a forked tongue like a snake, then goes about threatening the families of police officers and the police officers themselves in this country. So which is it, dear EFF member? Which hill are you actually going to die on? Is it the hill of you being, the peace-loving, peaceful protesting and the respecter of our rights as citizens? Or is it the red in tooth and claw fascist EFF, the one that uses coercion, violence, intimidation, and the inciting of violence in order to get their way? You've got to pick one. And in my assessment, and definitely my assessment on the Big Daddy Liberty show, is that the EFF are absolutely dangerous fascists. They are red in tooth and claw commies, and there's no difference between how they act today with the yesteryear socialists, such as your Stalins and the fascists such as Mussolini and Hitler of yesteryear. There is absolutely no difference. And the sooner the peanut gallery and the mainstream media stop pretending as if the EFF are a legitimate political party in this country, the better I think it will be for the average South African to understand exactly who we're dealing with when it comes to Malema and the EFF.
Andre, ek gaan vir jou hierso inbring en ek gaan vir jou vra. Die EFF is baie slim of baie goed met woorde en veral Julius Malema is baie goed met woorde. Wanneer hy goed sê en ek neem aan, wanneer hy sê byvoorbeeld ons sal wag vir die polisie om we'll wait for the police to get out of their uniforms and get to their homes and then we'll go see them there. Ek lees in daai woorde 'n dreigement teenoor polisielede. Die Menseregte Kommissie word julle toegelaat om iets in te lees in wat hy sê of moet hy fisies gaan sê hoor jy gaan vat die polisie aan? Waar is die lyn? Wat woorde aanbetref, waar lê die lyn? Vir ons gewone leke om te verstaan.
Dis 'n kwessie van om elke uitlating wat gemaak word deeglik te ontleed, die reg daarop toe te pas en dis meer, en dit is wat die Menseregte Kommissie doen. Dit is nie net eenvoudig, ons kan nie 'n algemene en sal nie 'n algemene stelling maak oor wat byvoorbeeld haatspraak behels behalwe die regsbeginsels nie. Dan hang dit af van elke feitelike omstandigheid om te bepaal of die regsbeginsels in hierdie geval spesifiek die gelykheidswet geskend is of nie. Wat sy uitlatings betref met betrekking tot die polisie onlangse uitlatings, dink ek kan 'n mens sê dat dit is beslis onverantwoordelik. Daar is ongelukkig in ons land 'n groter wordende gebrek aan respek vir die reg, gebrek aan respek vir wetgewing en dit is nie die kenmerke van 'n suksesvolle nasie nie. En ons moet baie groter wetsgehoorsaamheid in ons land nie net aanmoedig nie, maar ook bewerkstellig. En om te sê dat diegene wat die reg en orde in die land moet handhaaf, dat daar geen respek vir hulle is nie en dat daar met hulle gehandel sal word, dit is nie net problematies nie, maar ook heeltemal onaanvaarbaar. Dit uit die aard van die saak moet ons kyk of dit 'n oortreding van die wet en die reg as sodanig behels. Maar ons leef in 'n regstaat. En ek dink daar is min mense in die land of 'n minder wordende groepering mense wat regtig respek het daarvoor dat hierdie is 'n regstaat. Dit beteken dat alles wat gedoen word deur enige iemand, veral en in die besonder die staat deur die reg gesanksioneer moet wees en dat optrede buite die bestek van wetgewing en die reg as sulks nie net onwettig is nie, maar ook onaanvaarbaar is. En elkeen, veral politieke partye moet, en dis een van ons hoofboodskappe van vandag, dat daar is te veel rassepolarisasie wat plaasvind in die land en ongelukkig word betogings en al dies meer ook gebruik om rassepolarisasie in die hand te werk. En ons as Suid-Afrikaners moet begin saam staan om daardie rassepolarisasie teen te werk en te voorkom. As ons Nelson Mandela se wense wil eerbiedig van 'n land wat streef na nasionale eenheid, sosiale kohesie, dan moet gewone Suid-Afrikaners saamwerk om dit te bewerkstellig. Wat ook beteken dat wanneer die EFF opdaag by Brackenfell Hoërskool, dan moet die mense van Brackenfell nou nie dit as 'n geleentheid beskou om hulle spiere te wys nie. Dan moet dit juis as 'n geleentheid beskou word om te wys hoe hulle ook meehelp om sosiale kohesie en nasiebou te bewerkstellig. Diegene wat nasiebou teenwerk in die land en dit probeer vernietig, moet op ordentlike, grondwetlike en wetlike wyse aangevat word. En ek dink dis die uitdaging vir alle ordentlike en menseregte eerbiedigende en grondwet eerbiedigende Suid-Afrikaners.
Andre, ek gaan vir jou net ietsie vra. Dink jy nie dat die feit dat daar dit lyk op die oog af asof daar net geen optrede is teen die EFF of teen Julius Malema? Ek weet nie hoeveel sake was al by die Menseregte Kommissie teen Malema en ek weet nie hoeveel sake is al gemaak deur hoeveel mense nie, maar dit is skynbaar blyk dit blyk asof daar nie ooit teen hom net doeteenvoudig opgetree word nie. Dink jy nie dit dra daartoe by dat mense frustreerd raak met die feit dat hy toegelaat word om weg te kom met hierdie goed keer op keer en daai frustrasie borrel oor in iets wat gebeur soos in Brackenfell gebeur het. En soos wat ek dink, en ek is nie 'n groot voorspeller van die toekoms nie, maar soos wat ek dink nog gaan gebeur verder vorentoe. Ek dink hierdie is 'n kruitvat wat letterlik wag om te ontplof, want almal wil nou ewe skielik wys, maar hoorie, dit is nou genoeg. Is dit nie tyd vir 'n organisasie dan om vir hom skuldig te bevind een keer en te sê, luister maar hierso, jy kan nou nie verder gaan. Dink jy nie dit is julle taak om dit te doen? En dink jy nie dat daar iewers somewhere along the line mense se frustrasie oorkook as gevolg van die feit dat hy bloot op die as jy kyk na dit wat in die algemeen gebeur, dan blyk dit dat hy net wegkom en gewone mense raak frustreerd en hulle raak kwaad en hierdie situasie moet ontlont word want dit gaan een of ander tyd ontplof in ons gesigte.
Die Menseregte Kommissie sal teen Julius Malema optree as daar meriete in 'n bepaalde saak is, net soos wat ons sal optree teen enige ander Suid-Afrikaner, insluitende ook teen partye soos die meerderheidsparty selfs, die ANC, en andere, en dit sluit mense in van Afriforum, Solidariteit, wie ook al die geval mag wees. Die probleem wat ontstaan is, dink ek juis, die soort van reaksie wat 'n mens kry, wat onaanvaarbare reaksie is, en wat dan begin 'n grens ook aan wetloosheid of die grens oorskry in daardie verband. Dis nie 'n geval, onthou daar bestaan iets in die reg soos eie reg, eie rigting word dit eintlik genoem. Nou, eie rigting word in baie spesifieke en afgebakende gevalle toegelaat, maar gewoonlik absoluut nie. En daarom moet die grondwetlike instellings gerespekteer word, toegelaat word om hulle werk te doen, en daar is ongelukkig geen verskoning vir die sogenaamde oorkoking van emosie, wat in geweld ontaard, wat dalk in iets erger ontaard nie. Daar is geen basis in die reg daarvoor nie, behalwe as dit werklik waar gevalle is van selfverdediging en dies meer, noodtoestand en so aan, erkende gronde in die reg. So eerder dat elkeen in die land 'n oordeel wil vel oor 'n bepaalde situasie en wil sê ek spreek hierdie oordeel hieroor uit en daarom het X, Y en Z verkeerd opgetree in die verband, moet dit eerder oorgelaat word aan grondwetlike instellings, insluitende die howe in sommige omstandighede, om hulle beslissings te maak in die verband. En dis wat ek ook graag wil vra vir Afrikaanssprekendes, vir alle bevolkingsgroepe in die land, om die Menseregte Kommissie en ander instellings soos die openbare beskermer, die howe, toe te laat om hulle rol te speel, en om die braaivleisvure kan mense hulle menings hê, maar uiteindelik moet hulle nie dink dat die oordeel wat hulle daar vel noodwendig die korrekte oordeel is nie. Laat die grondwetlike instellings in die land toe om hulle rol te speel. As jy iemand is wat glo in 'n grondwetlike demokrasie, in 'n regstaat, en daarin glo dat die grondwet die finale dokument is waaraan almal se optrede, insluitende selfs wetgewing, gemeet behoort te word.
Unati, tell me, am I right in saying there's a growing frustration among people, because most people, and I think the majority of people, and we had this discussion previously where we said the majority of South Africans are peace-loving people that want to get along with everyone and that wants to see the sunshine on everybody's head. But it feels like you have the far left and you have the far right, and in the middle you have normal people that just gets along with everyone. but the fire seems to be coming from the far left and the far right, and I'm just scared that us normal people that's sitting in the middle is going to get caught in the veldfire that very soon I don't think we'll be able to stop. Is it only from a white perspective, or is that also from a black perspective?
No, it's not. Let's look at the bigger picture of what is happening here, and the EFF is just playing, seeing that gap that we have. I mean, we're seeing a breakdown in relations between communities and the police. You see it whether you're talking about farm murders, you're seeing it whether you're talking about mob justice in townships. It's caused by the fact that people don't trust police will protect them, and their right to do so. I mean, what the parents had to do in Brackenfell to protect their children. I'm not a parent, but if I was, obviously I would definitely want to protect my child from fascists and thugs, like the people that we've seen standing up for the EFF under the banner of the EFF. So there's that breakdown in relations between communities and the police, and it's unfortunate because as citizens now we will see and no one will be picking up the phone to call 10-111 or 112, whichever one you choose. People will just stand up for their rights, because people have a right to be in the schools that they choose. People have a right to associate with whomever they want to associate with. People have a right to free speech, and the EFF cannot come and take those rights away from them. It was unfortunate that Visuele in Senegal was sitting right next to Malema after everything that he's been saying about farmers in a country where we see a lot of farm murders. So, so if things continue that way, where politicians who are in power are seen to be associating with, I mean, not too long ago we saw a finance minister having dinner with Lisecha Kganyago of the Reserve Bank and Floyd Shivambu, and not too long ago before that he was praising Malema in Parliament. And you ask yourself, what exactly is going on in this country? Because as far as I'm concerned, after the VBS Bank, those people should be treated like lepers and not welcome at dinner meetings with the finance minister at a time when in Parliament, for instance, they are talking about nationalizing the Reserve Bank, which is something that is, I mean, people don't understand that South Africa, I mean, to have the Reserve Bank in private hands is the best that is the last hope of this economy. But as soon as politicians take that away from the country, then we'll just be, I suppose, another Venezuela, another Zimbabwe. So to have a finance minister associating with such people, it just, I mean, I don't know which person in this country, for instance, would ever trust government after these scenes are playing out in front of us. And as it was talking about children, I mean, children have to go to school traumatized by what had happened, traumatized by seeing their parents carrying arms to protect them. We don't know what this trauma will do to them when they grow up. Maybe they'll grow up hating Malema, hating the EFF, or unfortunately, some will even hate Black people because they will start thinking that this is how Black people behave, and it's not true. But it's just that kids, you know, kids are young and they don't know what to make of what they see in front of them. So yes, so it's just unfortunate that government doesn't see its role, which is, I mean, I always say this, that the primary role of government is to protect its citizens, to protect private property. And other than that, they shouldn't even be anywhere else. They shouldn't be running businesses. They shouldn't be creating all these laws that don't benefit anyone. Instead, they strangle and take away from our freedoms. So I don't know how we're going to solve the problem of the breakdown of. I mean, Helen Zille, when she was premier in the Western Cape, communities in Khayelitsha asked for a commission of inquiry because police were not doing their jobs. I mean, people don't even stopped bothering to report to police whenever a crime had happened. If there was a burglary in your house, you just look for the things yourself. You don't bother going to the police station unless you have a home insurance where you can claim. Not many people have that in Kailicha. So people choose to take the law into their own hands, and we really cannot blame them.
Sisha, I'm gonna come to you, and I'm gonna ask you the question of other schools was also raised at Brackenfell on Friday, when two other schools were actually named, and there were threats made that they would be next, and there would be protest action there as well. And I'm thinking of is it Jan van Riebeek, and the other one was Rhodes. So that threat sort of again at a school where people are busy writing final exams in a difficult year, and I'm not even at the super spreader where I'm still going to get to with COVID, but the threat against other schools, listen, you guys are next. How should that be taken?
Yeah, look, I think one has to be very careful not to be baited also by the EFF. I mean, there's a lot of bait that is put out by the EFF because it understands the politics of high emotion. The politics of high emotion is actually fantastic for a fascist movement because all it has to do is threaten the institutions that ordinary people care most about. And the institutions that ordinary people care most about are institutions of family and effectively, those institutions physically that house our families, like a school, for instance. They know that it elicits the most emotional response. And they can almost guarantee the emotional response because they, for whatever you want to call Julius Malema and the EFF, they are incredibly cunning people. They are incredibly cunning people. They know how to rile up a community in order to achieve their ends, which comes back to my original point, which is they're smart enough to understand what their rights are as the EFF, but also cunning enough to know how to destroy other people enjoying those same rights. But to come to your question, of course there'll be a targeting now. And guys, start picking up the pattern here. Let's start picking up the pattern. Of course, the EFF are now going to go after the things that they know we care about. So for instance, families are clearly in their crosshairs at the moment, both insofar as the school children in Brackenfell, and of course, now more recently, the family members of police officers. What do you think is going to happen the next time the EFF amass somewhere and the police are literally in front of them forming a barricade? Those same police officers, regardless of how professional they are, I mean, and again, I totally get it, right? I totally get it. Our police officers, in terms of public order policing, are reasonably professional when it comes to that element of policing because they've got enough practice. I'm losing my point. Let me circle back and make this point. What do you think is going to happen now when those same police officers who listened to Julius Malema saying, you know what, we're going to target you when you're off duty. Not only are you going to target you when you're off duty, we're going to come after your family also. What do you think those police officers are going to do the next time the EFF come and say, look, we want to protest? And you may very well have, in some cases, an emotional response from those same police. And that's what I'm arguing the EFF are looking for. They're looking to bait various people into an emotional response, which then justifies their continuous argument that South Africa is a society at the cusp of a race war, or that the major issue faced by South Africa is, quote, racism. That's simply not true. So I want to pick up on a quick point that the other guest made regarding the need, therefore, for ordinary people to look to institutions of state to protect them and to strengthen, or rather to look to institutions of the state, rather, to protect our rights. I think there's merit in that, but also don't be lulled into thinking the state is your friend. We've seen this when it comes to organizations like a Chapter 9 institution like the South African Human Rights Commission. They don't give a flying fudge about ordinary families, and worse yet, they clearly have made it quite clear that they run the same political agenda that characterizes our politics in this country, which is anti-minority generally, anti-white specifically. We've seen that rhetoric from the South African Human Rights Commission in both conduct, behavior, and rhetoric. So I wouldn't actually necessarily ask people to look towards state institutions as their first port of call in protecting their rights. On the contrary, I'd like to see communities actually stand up for themselves, organize themselves into very strong community-based organizations that are family-based, and for communities to defend themselves, whether they're defending themselves against ordinary crime or whatever the case may be, or political thuggery, such as the EFF. That's the kind of society I would want to see, because it's that society which the EFF fears the most. And you saw this, for instance, as a final thought, as a final point at least, you saw this in the run-up to the EFF's major protest in Brackenfell. You saw a lot of videos come out of residents of Cape Town, particularly Brackenfell and Kraaifontein generally, say, you know what, if the EFF want to come, we're ready for them. And this whole nonsense of us being white or racist or whatever the case may be, will show them that that's actually not the case, that Brackenfell is a very diverse community. And they literally saw that in real terms as the EFF, when the community itself came out and said, no, we're not going to stand for this.
Daniel, welcome aboard and welcome back. It's nice to have you back, Daniel, attorney, and I want to ask you specifically, and I know you don't have a lot of time, so we're going to go to you quickly. I want to ask you from a legal point of view, and I want to go to Judge Desai. I want to ask you about him, because you've dealt with him before and you've had court cases with him, etc., etc. I don't know. I just don't get it. Would it not have been COVID, number one? Number two, would it not have been just defusing the whole situation? Just saying, listen, guys, the protest now is not a good idea to have a protest. And then to go ahead and say, all right, there can be a protest with 100 people. Surely the judge must know there is no way that 100 people are going to pitch up at a protest march and just pass the ball, literally blindsiding the police in my eyes, and just passing the buck to the police and saying, listen, you've got to sort this out. 100 people, there's your, you can go ahead with a protest. And then in the same breath, the school with an urgent interdict, that case gets postponed to the 2nd of December. Why can't you just postpone the whole protest action to the 2nd of December, or that case as well, and then diffuse it like that? Judge Desai, you know him. What is your take on it?
So, Judge Desai, thanks for having me back on the show.
Awesome.
Really
nice
enjoyed it. So, Judge Desai, thank you. Judge Desai is an excellent judge. I've worked with him. I've been before him on quite a few matters. He's a very rational thinking judge, and he looks to balance the rights of both sides unless one side is completely in the wrong. So the problem before him was, how do you protect the right to free speech, the right to protest, the right for the EFF to assert their right on those that they believe were right on behalf of. So I'm talking from a position where I haven't seen the papers, and unfortunately with our courts, sometimes an attorney or the case that's been asked or the order that's been asked lives or dies on the actual wording of the application. I'm not saying it was a bad application, I haven't seen it, but it could have been rights of the protesters from the EFF. And then also, if you look at we obviously mentioned COVID and limiting gatherings to 100 people, etc. If you look what happened in America with Black Lives Matter, in London with the anti-lockdown protests, urgent applications and interdicts were also brought before those courts and failed or were postponed, because the American courts and the British courts also did not know, how do we limit a person's right to protest? I do believe that there should have been some sort of concessions, but I also think in the back of Judge Desai's mind, knowing him and having read quite a few of his judgments, he was also worried about the repercussions of interdicting the EFF and the protesters. One, for a more recent example, if you look what happened with clicks, a urgent application was brought. It did not succeed. It was postponed, I think, for the next day or so. The damage had already been done, and therefore the request for urgent interdicts was academic. They said, well, you've done it the first time, but don't do it again. So it's a balancing act, and it's very difficult, especially in such a hot pot country where everyone doesn't want their rights to be infringed, but they have no problem in infringing other people's rights. How do you balance that? How is you as a judge saying, well, I look what I'm up against, so I'm going to do a blanket no, you cannot protest. Is that going to make the situation worse, as bad as the situation actually was? Because let's not kid, they'd probably do it anyway.
Semone?
Daniel, I want to ask you quickly something. So the judge, he thought it was good to give them to put the ball in their court, give them the human rights to protest and do whatever. So Julius Malema took total advantage of that right or human right and abused it by sending not even 100 plus 2,000 apparently, according to media reports. Do you think he's doing that? And I'm thinking in the same breath with the human rights on the other side of the call, literally taunting the law, the human rights, and now the police to see who's going to stop him.
100% agree with that. And I know in the past everyone was up in arms when Mr. Malema was in the Zuma camp before he turned anti-Zuma. Everyone was up in arms saying, well, he only has he failed woodworking. He only has a certain degree, but he's a very smart politician. And he's learning from even bigger politicians such as Donald Trump, your post-truth, post-fact world. For example, he went and opened up his mouth on the weekend against the police. Minister Bekechele came and said, oh, I'm very upset and how dare he? But nothing is actually done. I think last year or the beginning of this year, Mr. Malema spoke about black excellence in you must promote black lawyers, black advocates. He then goes and hires a completely white legal team for his assault case, going back on his word, stands in front of a crowd and says, I'll hire whoever I want. No one can tell me what to do. The point is he's never ever faced any repercussions, whether it's in law, whether it's in politics. I don't know if people are intimidated or scared or they're worried about repercussions that have yet to happen or may happen or may not happen. But at the moment, there's no precedent because he can do whatever he wants. He can shoot a gun into the air. He can say what he wants about the police. He can say, attack this, destroy that, firebomb clicks. And every time he's been questioned, he goes, oh, no, it's not me. It's agents pretending to be part of the EFF. And no one ever takes it further. So it's up to our judicial system. It's up to our police. And honestly, it's up to our politicians who are in parliament with him to, if they believe he's done something wrong, they need to chastise him. If they believe he hasn't done anything wrong, then they must come out and say, well, he hasn't broken any laws. But at the moment, we have this blank space where he's operating very smartly within, like the outgoing President Donald Trump, where he can say whatever he wants. And no one stopped Donald Trump until election time. So why should he be stopped?
Daniel, here's a point I just want to make quickly. I want to ask you, just on that legal point, you've said there's never been any repercussions, and the standard EFF answer or Malema answer has always been, it's not us, it's agents within. This time, there were 8 people arrested. And those are apparently, we don't know for sure yet, but apparently those are EFF members. So from a legal perspective, you must be itching as a lawyer you must be itching and looking forward to this fight, because now eventually, well, you can't turn around and say, listen, it's outside agents, because now it's your representatives or your party members that were arrested for public violence, for breaking down the post office for one, and a car dealership, going up to and destroying cars, etc., etc. Now there's 8 arrests of your party members. Does that have a
exactly
legal...
It definitely does, because those party members, in terms of criminal law, will be asked to make a statement. They can either do it now or when they see that the evidence against them. But when they make the statement, they have to say, so-and-so, aged, whatever, this is my ID number. They have to say whether they are or aren't a member of the EFF, which they should be on the roll of members of the EFF. So it's definitely because now who's responsible? If they admit or it's found out that they are members of the EFF, now who is responsible for the protest? And that's very interesting. It's going to be looked at. The same as the assault case, the common assault case in the Randburg Magistrates Court that Mr. Malema and I think it's his second in charge or third in charge is facing, where again, it's on camera, it's stock standard assault case. There's no two ways about it. And the case they're trying to build is they were provoked. Provocation is not a defense in law. It's never been a defense in law. You are not allowed to assault another person unless it's in self-defense or defending your own life or those of others, which he can't argue. But again, it's a whole pass in the buck. It's not me, it's that person, this person did that. Unfortunately, South Africa, every citizen in South Africa or major politician has this aura of passing the buck. It's not me, I was told this, or I didn't take the money and this person gave it to me. It's ridiculous. But I do feel that the wars are closing, and I'm very, very interested to see where these cases go, because they're all in different jurisdictions, different magistrates court. And if you have competent prosecutors, which luckily South Africa still trains and has very, very good prosecutors, very difficult to get away with these charges, especially because of cell phone cameras, news cameras, WhatsApp phones, etc. Very difficult to say, I didn't do it when they've caught you red-handed.
Who should pay for the damage?
Well, unfortunately, that's a civil action. So the criminal courts can't order who they believe is responsible to pay for the damages. However, if they plead guilty or are found guilty, the next stage is the sentencing procedure. And if you want to mitigate the potentially severe sentence, whether it's jail time or a suspended sentence or community service, you have to show some remorse and you have to make amends. So if they want to get a lesser sentence and not be thrown under the bus, and I'm hoping the party won't throw their members under the bus, then some sort of reimbursement or payment for damages should be offered in order that they get a lesser sentence if they are found guilty or plead guilty.
The Brackenfell situation, Daniel, I know you must go. We're going to leave you after this.
I'm actually okay. At the moment,
are you okay?
So.
All right. I'm going to ask you, from a legal perspective, for future applications that will no doubt be brought to court again by the EFF, next time against Jan van Riebeeck High School and against Rhodes, who was threatened, the whole legal court route that's got to be followed again, will this be taken into account the next time a court application is heard by a judge?
Definitely. The judges aren't supposed to be persuaded or directed in terms of what's happened in the past if it's not decided precedent, so if it's not a judgment or case law. And they shouldn't be swayed by media reports, but there's no way, it's inescapable in this current day and age. So I do think that future decisions of this and current and future judges should say, look at what happened when we didn't do anything and look at what happened when we did do something. And they need to kind of tailor their decisions to, number one, honor our constitution and abide by our constitution, but also protect the citizens of South Africa, both sides. There has to be some sort of balancing it. Right to freedom of speech, right to protest, as well as, for example, in this case, the children's right to have an undisturbed matric and potentially prevent serious harm, violence, and damage to property and persons. There needs to be a balancing act, and the future judges, based on what's happened, water cannons, tear gas, both sides being injured, if there's a way, if it means banning a protest to prevent something like that happening again and postponing it for a more peaceful protest that you have to make application, then they have to take that into account.
Andre, ek wil gou vir jou vra. Ek as 'n lid van die publiek, ek gee 'n voorbeeld. COVID-19 is 'n baie ernstige saak in Suid-Afrika. Daar's baie mense wat hulle werk verloor het alreeds as gevolg van dit. Daar's mense wat baie swaar kry as gevolg van COVID-19. Boonbehalwe die feit dat daar alreeds 20.800 mense dood is in Suid-Afrika aan COVID-19. Word my menseregte aangetast wanneer daar toegelaat word dat daar 'n super spreader. Ons kan nie, ons is 'n media, ons is 'n radiostasie, doen konserte. Dis 'n groot deel van ons inkomste is om konserte te hou. So ons kan nie 'n konsert hou nie, want ons mag nie meer as 500 mense bymekaar hê nie, want dis COVID-19 die reëls geld, bla bla bla. Ek is 'n mens, word my reg aangetas wanneer daar 'n groep mense bymekaar kom, report sê up to 2000 people. Ons weet nie, kom ons sê 1000 mense, tussen 1000 en 2000 mense kom bymekaar wat totaal en al geen ag slaan op COVID-19 reëls nie. Word my regte dan nie aangetas om veilig te moet voel binne die COVID-19 raamwerk wat deur die regering daar gestel is, as dit net geïgnoreer word nie?
Ja, ek dink is 'n interessante vraag, want die eerste vraag in die verband is of die beperking wat ingestel is regverdigbaar is in terme van die grondwet. En ons het baie beperkings gesien, sommige waarmee ons saamgestem het en ander waarmee ons nie saamgestem het nie. So in die huidige omstandighede is die eerste regsvraag werklik of die huidige beperkings aanvaarbaar is of nie. Maar kom ons gestel dit is aanvaarbare beperkings in terme van die beperkingsklausule in terme van ons grondwet, dan uiteraard moet dit nagekom word en dan is dit 'n oortreding van nie net die beperkings nie, maar ook 'n ingryping, verkeerdelike ongrondwetlike ingryping op byvoorbeeld 'n mensenreg op gesondheid om nie daaraan gehoor te gee nie. Dit sou my kort antwoord daarop wees. Maar ek dink Daniel het 'n paar baie interessante punte gemaak, ook juis rondom die kwessie van protesaksie. Nou, ons moet die basiese beginsels baie duidelik verstaan. Eerstens, protesaksie is 'n grondwetlike reg, 'n fundamentele reg. Maar dit moet op 'n vreedsame en onbewapende wyse uitgeoefen word, nommer 1. Dit is die basiese beperkings op daardie reg in terme van die grondwet om dit grondwetlik te maak. Indien dit nie so uitgeoefen word nie, dan is dit buite die raamwerk van grondwetlike beskerming. En tweedens, dit kan nie op 'n wyse uitgeoefen word wat inbreuk maak op ander basiese regte nie, byvoorbeeld die reg op basiese onderwys, maar miskien meer spesifiek die so-called best interests of the child that is paramount in terms of the Constitution. And therefore, the real question also becomes if prolonged protest action at a specific school taking place right in front of the school and clearly impeding on examinations and so on at that particular school, whether that is acceptable in terms of the Constitution. And I'm not sure, I haven't read the judgment, but to what extent Judge Desai did take that into account. But going forward, I am pretty sure that prolonged protests at a particular school, clearly impacting on the examination, writing, and right to a basic education of the children there, traumatizing the children and so on, would become of such a nature that even the right to protest would need to be limited in terms of the Constitution to protect not only the right to a basic education and other rights, but in particular to look after the best interests of the child that is of predominant importance in terms of the Constitution.
Pem, jy wil iets vra, ek sien jou.
Ja, hallo almal, Professor Gam, hierdie is vir jou. So Wimpie het jou vroeër gevra, wat moet Julius Malema sê vir daar om opgetree te word teen hom, right? En jou antwoord was vir my bitter teleurstellend. Jy het gesê weer eens soos laas, ja, you know, we're gonna look into it. Ek wil net weet wat dit beteken. Ek bedoel, is dit nie net wat hy gesê het, of hy het gesê het of nie? Is dit wat julle bepaal met looking into it, of moet julle besluit of dit eintlik teen die wet is? Want iets soos kill the boer moet natuurlik, ek bedoel, daar's seker nie twyfel oor dat dit haatspraak is. En as skole, die volgende skole gedreig word, moet dit nie tel onder inciting violence of haatsprake. Wat bedoel jy by as jy sê we're going to look into it? Want daar's nou al soveel voorvalle waar jy nou na kyk.
Ja, daar is hierdie eienaardige persepsie dat ons nie bereid is om teen die EFF op te tree nie. Waar dit vandaan kom, weet ek werklik waar nie.
Het julle al?
Inderdaad, in die Gauteng Suid Hooggeregshof is ons besig met 'n saak teen Malema oor sy assosiasie met uitsprake van Robert Mugabe. Ek het sopas gesê dat ons aangekondig het vandag dat ons die one settler, one bullet, die gebruikmaking van daardie slagspreuk in die Wes-Kaap met betrekking tot die Brackenfell Hoërskool na die Gelykheidshof te vat. Ons is inderdaad bereid om op te tree teen enige iemand, dit maak nie saak wie dit is nie, indien daar meriete is in die saak. En so ook wat Julius Malema betref. Ek dink die groot kwessie wat teen ons gehou word, is dat in die geval wat Julius Malema gesê het, I am not calling for the slaughtering of whites, at least not for now, binne die konteks van 'n hele toespraak wat gaan het oor kolonialisme en dies meer wat deur die howe aangedui word en aggeneem moet word, dat ons daar bevind het dat in daardie besondere geval hy nie skuldig was aan haatspraak nie. Nou die Afrikaanse media maak iets eisliks daarvan, herhaal dit keer op keer en hou dit teen die kommissie as 'n aanduiding van aardig genoeg ons bevooroordeeldheid teenoor die EFF. Nou dit is absoluut nie die geval nie. As Julius Malema môreoggend opstaan en byvoorbeeld sê I call for the killing of whites, dan sal ek die eerste een wees en ek is nou verantwoordelik vir gelykheid ook by die kommissie nie.
Is dit 'n bietjie laat dan nie?
Na die gelykheids, nee, gee my 'n kans om daardie saak onmiddellik na die gelykheidshof te vat. Daar is verskeie ontwikkelings met betrekking tot haatspraak in ons reg. En Daniel sal vir jou kan vertel dat daar is die Kwelane aangeleentheid waar die Menseregte Kommissie in die appelhof verloor het teen Kwelane, omdat ons gesê het wat hy te sê gehad het was haatspraak met betrekking tot homoseksuele mense. En waar ons toe uiteindelik daarteen geappeleer het. En ons wag op die uitspraak van die hoger van die grondwetlike hof in daardie verband. Nou, daardie saak is uitsonderlik belangrik, omdat daardie saak sal aandui of ons regse houding teenoor haatspraak enger is of weier is. Met ander woorde, dit sal aandui of meer dinge kan kwalifiseer as haatspraak of minder dinge, om dit nou baie eenvoudig te stel. En aardig genoeg was nasionale pers en dies meer die eerstes wat toe nou die uitspraak van die appelhof verwelkom het, maar hulle was ook die selle wat vir Afrikaans sprekende mense vertel het, dat ons uitspraak oor Malema totaal en al verkeerd was. So ons moet konsekwent wees oor die goed en ons wag op die uitspraak van die grondwetlike hof ook om te sê of die baie eng definisie van die grondwet oor haatspraak is wat gevolg moet word en of die weier definisie van die gelykheidswet die een is wat gevolg moet word, wat sal veroorsaak die enger definisie ter sprake is, dat minder dinge op haatspraak neerkom. Hoekom? Ook onder meer omdat vryheid van spraak 'n uiters belangrike waarde is in terme van ons grondwet. En ons moet altyd onthou dat vryheid van spraak aan die een kant gewaarborg word deur die grondwet, aan die ander kant is daar sekere goed wat nie gewaarborg word nie en wat aangedui word selfs deur die grondwet as nie grondwetlik beskerm te wees nie. So daardie is die twee waardes en in terme van vryheid van spraak, dit is 'n fundamentele waarde van ons grondwet wat baie belangrik is vir 'n demokrasie. So ons moet baie versigtig wees om sommer tot gevolgtrekkings te kom in die geval. En ek dink Daniel sal dit bevestig.
Daniel, is it not time that we have a straight shooting down the middle? This is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. You are not allowed to say that. If you say, if I stand up in public and I say, one EFF member, one bullet. It carries the same weight as saying one settler, one bullet. Is it not time to have a set of rules? Ek hoor wat André sê, vryheid van spraak. Ek is self eerstens 'n joernalis. Ek glo groot in die vryheid van spraak beleid. Daar's geen probleem daarmee nie. Maar wanneer my vryheid van spraak vir ander mense A afhanteer en B ander mense se lewens in gevaar begin stel, dan dink ek is daai vryheid van spraak dan begin dit op ander mense se regte begin dit infringe. Is it not time, Daniel? I'm asking the question for you. You're a much better legal brain than I am. Is it not time to have straightforward black and white rules? This is the rule, that's the rule. If you dabber on this side of the law or on this side of that law, of that rule, you will be arrested. Is it not time for that?
I definitely agree. But so currently that is governed by, I think it's the Prevention of Hate Speech Act. I stand to be corrected, but I had a case about it about a year or two ago where a racist comment was made and it was prosecuted in terms of the Prevention of Hate Speech Act. That act is out of date and it is being amended or updated or completely revoked and a new act coming in. So in terms of straight shooting, I agree. There should be a set of rules, black and white. However, because of the current world we live in, it's very PC, for lack of a better term. It's hard to say what offends someone and what doesn't offend someone. For example, in the LBGQT community, plus community, there's various terms that wouldn't offend me and you, but it would offend another person. But in terms of simple racial slurs, anti-Semitic slurs, there should be some sort of code that you can and cannot say this. For example, where they say one settler, one bullet. I 100% agree with you. To anyone who's reading that, it is hate speech. Because recently, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a gentleman who pleaded guilty because he posted on Twitter that all Jews should have been gassed in the Holocaust, something like that.
That's right.
No different. You're saying the exact same thing. You're saying it about a race of what you say are white people versus a religion of Jewish people. So there should be, in terms of religion or your major religions, in terms of races in South Africa, there should be some sort of guiding regulations or overarching act that it can't be left to interpretation. You said this is offensive both criminally and civilly to someone. It's defaming their dignity. It's in breach of the Constitution. I do think a case needs to go all the way to the Constitutional Court for something to be done. As I've said previously on the show, our Constitution is one of, if not the best in the world. Many of the top the late Justice Ruth Ginsburg, she came to South Africa on a visit and she said our Constitution is way beyond the American Constitution. So I do think a case, and I hope, unfortunately, it's a very expensive procedure, that someone has the stamina and the money to take it all the way to the Constitutional Court, that the Constitutional Court can define what is actually hate speech.
Correct. Thanks, Daniel.
But, sorry, can I say that is exactly what happened now with the Kwelane case that is to be decided by the Constitutional Court.
Yes, that's what I'm waiting
Daniel
for.
would agree with me, he should agree with me that, the law is not always black and white. It depends on the circumstances of each particular case. So what typically happens in law is that the law determines the legal principles. And then it depends on the facts and the circumstances of a particular case. And that is what makes it sometimes difficult, I think, even for the public to understand. And obviously, the law needs to be transparent, and there have been various attempts to make it more transparent and more simple language, etc. But in the final analysis, it is applying the laws to the facts, depending on the circumstances. And in the case of hate speech, for example, the context and so on need to be taken into account. Context of what happened before the remark was made, what happened after that, also in terms of a speech, for example, that has been made, in what historical context, social, economic context it took place. So, and these principles are not principles laid down by the Human Rights Commission. These have been laid down by the courts. And given the fact that we are a state governed by the rule of law, we also, as the Human Rights Commission, need to take into account these judgments and jurisprudence in coming to decisions. And sometimes it is difficult to explain some of these decisions, in the sense that a lot of explanation is actually needed to explain it.
Maybe,
But
maybe
it's
Andre,
not,
that's the problem.
definitely not a question of black and white and simple principles and simple judgments to be made.
Maybe that's the
I agree
problem.
with
Maybe we should bring it back more down to the basics and layman's terms, because there's a lot of people with lots of rights and everyone just playing on the border.
I agree with Andre on that point, because background is so important, especially in education, because there are so many schools and informal educational facilities in this country. How many of those are teaching people about other religions or the events, European history, such as the Holocaust? Someone saying this, what we believe is hate speech, whether it's from Google or previous education, they might not understand why it is hate speech. So Andre is 100% correct. Every case needs to be judged on its merits. And that's what people don't understand, because the people who are reading News 24 and they see that Malema said this, may say, but I don't understand. Why is that offensive to some people? So every case needs to be decided on its merits. And this constitutional court case is definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah. Can't wait for that. Okay, Nati, final thoughts on what happened over the weekend with the EFF and the way forward, and then I'm going to ask the same question for Sishle, and then I see Pat Rualani has also joined us from Pop Crew, so I'm going to say goodbye to Nati after this, and also to Sishle and to Andre, and then I want to have a chat with Pat and Daniel, if it's okay, if you can stick around another 5 minutes, because I think we might have a connection with Pat there, and looking at the legal aspects as well. So Nati, last thoughts on what happened at the way forward.
People keep praising our constitution, and as far as I'm concerned, it's not. It can be good on paper, but if it's not doing what it doesn't translate into action and changing a society into what we want to be, then as far as I'm concerned, it's a useless constitution. And as we have seen, I think I would like to think that we're supposed to be equal before the law, but whenever there's cases that have to do with politicians, we start to see that we're not really equal before the law. So you're right in saying that maybe we should go back to basics. And when you talk about the hate speech laws, there's always going to be who decides what is hate speech, and who decides why do people take offense of certain things and others don't? It's because we come from different backgrounds. So why not just allow free speech to rule? And I don't know, that probably sounds radical, but as long as politicians are going to be in power, then we'll always have a South African Human Rights Commission that, as far as I'm concerned, that treats Malema with kid gloves, and that will be harsh to white people or Afrikaners in this country. So as long as that power is given to politicians and institutions like SAHR, then we'll always have these conversations because some will always be someone's right just because of the color of their skin will always be trampled upon. And if I'm black, then I get more leeway because someone else sees me as a victim. So, oh, poor Unati, then she couldn't control her emotions. That's why she was nasty to someone else who's a different skin color. And that's why I'm always reluctant to support bills like the hate speech bill, because that power ultimately relies on politicians, and we can't trust politicians, obviously.
Thank you, Nati. As always, pleasure having you with us tonight, and good luck. And we'll definitely chat to you in the future again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Cecily, final words on Brackenfell and the way forward. Do you see it?
Yeah, sorry, I just had to quickly jump in with the last point that Unati made, which I think is spot on. I want us to be very careful we don't get lost in the legalese that I've sort of been hearing go back and forth in this conversation, and that certain fundamental rights and certain fundamental liberties are not infringed upon. Free speech, for me, I'm an absolutist in that regard, where I only draw the line is on incitement to violence. And in every instance where we have called out Julius Malema for what he said is because he's incited violence. So insofar as him saying outlandish things, let me make an example, a side example, just to make my point, because I can't actually use Malema as an example, because he actually incites violence, which is him crossing the threshold for me. If someone said to me, as I often get on my social media feed, oh, well, I just don't like whites and whiteness, that's offensive. That's incredibly offensive. It's actually racist. But I'm not now going to argue that that's hate speech or that that person should be subject to, some sort of court action and whatever the case may be. That's nonsense. Free speech should actually apply even to things that are deeply uncomfortable for us to hear, and even for things that really are, quote, hate speech. I wouldn't necessarily infringe on here's the thing about free speech. Free speech isn't here for us to talk about things that only make us comfortable, or the weather, or any of these innocuous things. Free speech allows people to say some really risque and dangerous things. Where you should genuinely draw the line is when people then incite harm or physical harm upon others. That's where I think I draw the line. And in that particular instance, Malema, time and time again, crosses that line, and it's on that basis that I argue that he should face, repercussions. It's for the actual incitement in particular. So I thought I should actually clarify my position on this, because I'm very skeptical when I start hearing people talk about hate speech bills or putting this before politicians to decide legislation, and then it goes to the sort of the predictable level, which is, I like to call it in a derisive way, the legalese. Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend as if judges in this country, some judges in this country are impartial and that they're professional. You are finding ever increasingly that there are activist judges in this country who are passing judgments which are reflective of a narrative of the day, of a lingua franca of the day, whether it is a woke language or whatever the case may be, or in the other direction, which is the preservation of certain rights that we historically came to understand came with the Western liberal tradition. So I just thought I had to cap that off just to give my sense of things in that particular regard. To your question, I'm of the firm view that the EFF, there's two levels for me. The one is, and I'll repeat it just to cap off the point, Julius Malema has incited violence in this country in every instance, or nearly every instance, where he said something which has obviously irked people, whether it's him saying, we're not going to I haven't called for the slaughtering of whites quite yet, or that he'll cut the throat of whiteness, or that he's going to go after police officers and their families. I can go down the line of actual instances of him inciting violence. As those pertain to those statements, let him face court action for that. That, for me, is legitimate, that should continue. The other thing that he needs to face is immense public pressure and pushback from ordinary citizens, the public in this country, who you rightly described, by the way, at the beginning of the segment, as being, moderate. The vast majority of South Africans, this reflects in consistent polling, actually moderate people. I like to describe South Africans as being, generally speaking, God-fearing, law-abiding, and family-orientated. I think it's those South Africans who now need to draw the line in the sand and say, you know what? Actually, no. We don't accede to your thuggery. We don't accede. We don't agree to, the rhetoric, the inflammatory rhetoric that is coming, that is insightful.
Was that not, in a sense, what was done in Brackenfell?
Well, I was building up to that, which is Brackenfell for me became the litmus test and the example of how a community should respond. And I want to take it a step before Brackenfell. Senegal was a good one for me because I was in Senegal, and what I saw there was a community who created real social distance, if I may steal that expression, between them as residents of Senegal and the surrounding towns and the EFF members who had been bused in to that part of the world. I think that was a major shock to the EFF, that ordinary people actually wanted to create a physical distance between them and the antics and the behavior and the thuggery of the EFF. So kudos to those two communities. I think they are setting a benchmark for how ordinary people should actually band together as communities and push back against the hatred that we're hearing from our politicians.
Thank you, Shishli. Thanks very much for joining us the first time on WimTV tonight. It was awesome having you on board. Pat Rualani, good evening and welcome. I know it's late in the conversation. We are talking about the EFF, Julius Malema, and obviously what happened in Brackenfell over the past weekend. Pat, I want to ask you, there was lots of comments made by the EFF leader on Sunday, inciting, it seems to be inciting violence against police and police families, etc., etc. What is the respective? What is Pop Crew's official stance against what happened over the weekend in the Free State?
Stand. Is that what is Pokro stand? Is that what you are saying? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Pat, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Definitely. Thanks so much. We were called in very, very late in a short period of time.
Yes.
But we understand. Yeah. Look, we really are angry. You'll remember we were still coming from a shock of Marikana. Our members, by all means, they are trying to do their best. Our task is very simple, to protect the right of our citizens. There's nobody in South Africa that has got more rights than the others, using the term black. We're not going to allow that. But let me not focus on Malema. Let me focus on realities. There are issues that might have ensued at Brackenfell, and those particular issues, as a mature democracy, we were supposed to find each other. But I will never downplay racism at all costs, because I'm quite sure that my white counterpart also will understand that indeed, if there was a crisis or the issues that have been identified by the EFF, they could have done better to find a way to talk with the leadership of the EFF so that this particular matter must be settled. What we are more worried about is this insinuation of saying, by the EFF rather, to say that after we have moved from where we are working as police officials, we are going to be followed in our houses and where possible being dealt with. The way dealt with, it might be that we might be killed. And we think that we are taking this very serious. We do not have friendship in relations to people that are murdering people. And obviously, if that is the case, I think we are dealing with this particular matter with our lawyers. We didn't want to make him fancy and go and open a case. We want him to pay. You usually used to do that to cliques and the rest. We want him to feel the pinch a bit, so that at least he must not think that he owns South Africa. Yes, he might be owning certain individuals in the EFF, but he does not own our country. And he must stop insinuating violence. And this is the part that we're supposed to be dealing with collectively as South Africans, to say there's no anybody in South Africa that own us. The Constitution protect everybody. He cannot be a police on his own or be a police officer for the rest of us. We know the law, all of us, but the only thing that we hate is somebody that does not respect life. Because by virtue of saying he's going to follow our members in their houses, it means that he does not respect South Africans in general. These are people that dearly have dedicated their life to protect the citizens of this country. So Malema must back off.
Andre, jy hoor wat sê Pop Crew. From a police perspective, the police obviously are feeling not they're not comfortable with the past weekend's statements by the EFF and by Mr. Malema in particular. And you hear what Pop Crew has to say from a police perspective. Can we expect some sort of action now being taken? And I'm going to leave it at that. I know it's been a long night, but I've got to ask you.
Yes, no, I think that the remarks made with in respect of the police is of great concern to the Commission. You know, the police is there to protect all of us, to restore law and order where that is necessary and so on. And then to actually, and they have a constitutional duty in that regard. And when you know, remarks are made that impedes on that function, then it really becomes not only problematic but also unacceptable. And we are looking into all these matters, including the conduct of the police as well, because there are also complaints as far as that is concerned. So it is complex, but we don't appreciate or accept or support at all statements about the police such as those that have been made, and that needs to be investigated, and we will most certainly look at that. I think you know, of the remarks made tonight, some of C/'s remarks has been very interesting to me, and I think that you should also invite him more often as a guest on this program, perhaps. Very interesting and informing remarks made by him. The point is this, that are we going to foster national reconciliation, national unity, and social cohesion in this country, or are we going the opposite side? And I think all South Africans should choose for national cohesion and national unity, social cohesion, to make sure that this country works. We are a very diverse nation. There's no doubt about that. Ons is 'n baie gediversifiseerde land. Maar ons grondwet stel dit baie pragtig in sy grondliggende beginsels om te sê ons is 'n diverse land, verenig in ons diversiteit, united in our diversity. And I think that is what we should work towards. We have Jews in this country, we have Afrikaners, like many of us, we have Xhosas and Zulus, we have Africans and coloreds and whites. We need to find a way of working together, of building this country, of making this nation a nation that works and works well, that is prosperous, and that can take its place in the world of nations. And I think that is what we should all work towards. En om betogings te hê en dan daar rassekonflikte hê en in opstand te kom teen mekaar en die rasse tamboer te slaan, die baie mooi uitdrukking in Afrikaans eintlik, is nie die regte manier om dinge aan te pak nie. Ons moet mekaar se hande vat en 'n manier vind om hier in ons land, hier aan die suidpunt van Afrika, saam te werk en om in een span te trek. En dis die enigste oplossing vir ons land.
En nie die polisie te dreig nie. Baie dankie, André.
Inderdaad. Hulle is daar grondwetlik daar gestel om ons te beskerm.
Korrek.
En
dan moet ons hulle so begin hanteer.
Net soos wat ons die howe en almal anders moet respekteer. Anders as wat Unati vroeër gesê het dat die jy weet dat die politieke partye nou net 'n klomp mense is wat problematies is and whatever the case may be. We need to understand that the political parties are those represented in parliament are elected by the people. They're the only people, not even the Human Rights Commission or the lawyers or the judges are elected by the people. So also in that respect, if we want to say like Winston Churchill, this is maybe democracy is maybe the worst of all the best systems, or the best of all the worst systems, sorry, then, you know, I mean, we need to respect that. And we can't say then, ons kan nie dan sê, dat ons verwerp ook sommer demokrasie, en ons verwerp alle politici, en hulle is net 'n klomp bondpraters, en ons, jy weet, kan nie enigstens met hulle identifiseer nie. Dis ook verkeerd. Dit is ook verkeerd. En ek praat nie as 'n politikus nie, ek praat as iemand wat sê, ons moet ons volledige, volkome demokrasie en grondwetlike demokrasie ondersteun, en binne daardie raamwerk ons verskille met mekaar deel.
Baie dankie André, dankie vir die saamgesels weer eens vanaand, en ja, ons, ek en jy gaan nog baie debatte voer hieroor, maar baie dankie dat jy altyd instem om aan boord te kom, ons waardeer dit, dankie. Daniel, I'm going to end off with you. Pat, I'm going to ask you to just stay for one more minute with us. Ek wil gou 'n word, Daniel. Just from a police perspective, there's been a lot of talk now in the past week on the police. Is it incitement against the police when you say we're going to wait for you to get off duty and get into civilian clothes, then we're going to follow you home and we're going to look after you and your family? Is that incitement to violence? Is that a threat that should be taken seriously and that should have legal consequences?
I definitely believe that it's incitement to violence, as are most things that they say. The fact that whether the actions are actually carried out or not is irrelevant. It's an incitement to violence. The police work hard enough. They're there to protect the citizens of the country. They don't now need to watch their own backs for when they're off duty. So I definitely believe it's incitement to violence. He can't come and say, no, well, I didn't mean what I said. I didn't intend for any consequences, because if one policeman gets killed or injured, it's one too many. So yeah, I believe that he should be chastised, because it definitely is an incitement. And any crime against a police officer is a serious offense. Even incitement to commit a crime against a police officer. Daniel,
thanks very much. As always, great having you on board. Pat, I'm going to end off with you. I'm going to ask you from the police perspective, the police's point of view, what happens next? Are you going to just leave it and be happy with what happened, and that's going to be that? What happens next from the police side? Are you going to take this matter further as it should and have further investigations? I think we've lost. Pat, are you still there?
Hey, Madod.
Yes.
I'm lost here. Can you hear me? I don't know what's happening.
No, we can still hear you.
That's sabotage. But Wimpie, I think we'll be making a follow-up on this particular matter. It's just that I was just called in a short bit of time. But I'm quite sure that nationally, our national office are dealing with this particular matter. And I'm glad that we are invited here. Keep it up, do this work for our people, for our nation. But what we are not going to allow is somebody that thinks that he owns South Africa. We are not going to allow that. But at the end of the day, what is quite important is that the rights of all citizens must be protected, even those that of the police officers. We are not going to lay down simply because somebody thinks that he's been given a heaven in South Africa. He can just talk as he wishes and nobody can say anything. We're not going to lie down on this one. We're going to take it further, and we'll be able to update you in due course.
We will be watching you, and we will be following up with you, Pat, and yeah, we'll definitely keep tabs on what's happening further. Good luck with the awesome work the police force is doing in South Africa. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very much, André. Baie dankie dat jy aangesluit het, en dit was soos altyd lekker. Dit sluit dan ons gesprek af met almal, en ek dink dit was 'n interessante ene. Dit was 'n lang ene julle, maar ek dink dit was 'n baie interessante gesprek, en dit was een wat nodig gehad het om daar te wees. Ek dink ons gaan 'n vinnige musiekbreek vat, en dan wanneer ons terugkom, dan net ons finale gedagtes, en ons moet nie vergeet dat ons nog 'n prank het wat op ons wag nie. So ons gaan 'n vinnige musiekbreek vat saam met die band, en dan wanneer ons terugkom, nou hoor ons finale gedagtes van julle almal. Julle was baie stil geweest vanaand en julle het nou nie baie gepraat hier Stanley. Julle het vir my so 'n bietjie aan die bekommerde kant gehad, maar net hierna, wanneer ons terugkom, maar gesels ons dan gee ons gedagtes, deel ons gedagtes met jou. Dit was 'n lang gesprek en ek jammer dat almal net nou nie tyd gehad om in te kom nie, maar ek dink dit was boeiend. Dit was een van daai ek wou hoor wat sê die polisie en ek wil weet wat is ons wil almal weet as daar 'n superspreader events gehou mag word. Hey Mark, you know what? Then we can have a concert. If 500, if 100,
saying for so long.
If 2,000 people can rock up with red overalls and or red T-shirts and have a protest, surely we can have a rock concert.
We can do it tomorrow.
Yes, we can all
It's
buy
easier
red
to say
T-shirts
sorry
and have
than
a
it is to
concert.
ask permission. For
Absolutely.
No, invite. Say it's a function for 100, but invite 5,000. And then with 3,000 arrive.
It can be a protest action with background music.
Yeah.
With a bed.
Can we like call it like another brick in the wall type of protest?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, guys, take it away.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Out where the river broke, the bloodwood and the desert oak, holding wrecks and boiling diesel, steaming 45 degrees. The time has come to say fair's fair, to pay the rent, to pay our share. The time has come, a fact's a fact, belongs to them. Let's give it back. How can we dance when our earth is turning? How do we sleep while our beds are burning? How do we dance when our earth is turning? How do we sleep while our beds are burning? The time has come, I say there's fair, to pay the rent now, to pay our share. Four wheels scare the cockatoos from Kintar East to Yendemu. The western desert lives and breathes 45 degrees. The time has come to say fair's fair, to pay the rent, to pay our share. The time has come, a fact's a fact, belongs to them. Let's give it back. How do we dance when our earth is turning? How do we sleep while our beds are burning?
Lekker man, well done Mark. How do we sleep indeed when our beds are burning? That's a good question. Ons om saam te vat, interessante gesprek. Ek dink dit wat in Brackenfell gebeur het die afgelope naweek, daar's een baie goeie punt wat gemaak is. Ek dink deur Seashway en ek dink dit was dit was hy toe hy gesê het dis tyd dat daar 'n streep in die sand getrek word en dit is wat in Brackenfell gebeur het. Of jy ten gunste daarvan was wat die vorige keer gebeur het of nie. Die streep is getrek en ek dink die ander punt wat ook gemaak is vroeër vanaand is dat mense sal die gereg in hulle eie hande neem as hulle nie sien dat gereg gebeur nie. If they don't see that they don't see justice as being done, they will want to do justice by themselves. En ek dink ons is by daai punt en 'n interessante video. En ek wil vir jou vra Stanley om my video vir my aan te stuur. Stanley het 'n video geneem. Hy het dit net gemis met 'n paar sekondes, maar jy kan nog steeds die res van die video kan jy sien die gist of it. En dit was by Brackenfell inkopiesentrum, daar waar Jamrock Theater is. Daar by die KFC daar het 'n transaksie plaasgevind tussen 'n EFF official amptenaar en 4 ouens wat elkeen R50 gekry het by die EFF amptenaar. En die vraag is, die mense wat so in hulle hordes opruk, is dit werklik EFF ondersteuners? Of is dit mense wat daar is vir 'n streetwise toe? Vandag. Die ander ding is, daai mense was nie deel van die optog nie en net daarna het daar klomp brande uitgebreek en ek maak geen aantuigings nie, ek sê net dit lyk suspicieus en ek wil graag hê dat
if it walks like a dog, if it barks like a dog, if it wat sê hulle, wag its tail, it's probably a dog.
Ja. If it quacks like a duck.
Ja.
Maar die feit van die saak is nie, ek wil nie iemand daai video vir my stuur. Ek gaan dit plaas op WimTV se social media en dan jy kan jou eie gevolgtrekking maak. Maar die vraag is daai mense daar vir 'n streetwise toe of is hulle daar want hulle hang aan die EFF se lippe?
Dis presies wat ek vir David gevra of Daniel gevra het is en dit is wat jy nou sê daarso. Almal het 'n reg tot protesaksie, okay? Kom ons hou dit maar net daar in 'n broad sense want daar's 'n klomp dinge wat jy moet aan vereis is wat jy moet voldoen. Byvoorbeeld jy mag nie
meer as 100 nie.
Wel in hierdie geval ja, mag jy nie meer as 100 nie, maar besides dit even totaal en al wat hulle of hy, ek gaan dan sê hy want soos jy sê hulle is dalk nie eens betrokke nie. Vat advantage van die feit dat jy 'n human right het om 'n protes te hê en dan exploit jy dit deur mense in te ry vir 'n persoonlike gewin wat eintlik nie eens polities is nie. Die reëse aangeleentheid by 'n for whatever reason. Ja, hoor jy wat ek probeer sê?
Ja, en sê stem, is dit die tyd moet ons nie dan sê, goed, weet jy wat? R50 koop vir jou 'n bietjie ondersteuning vir 'n halwe dag. Hoeveel geld het jy nodig om 'n land te koop dan?
Ek dink nie.
VBS is klaar leeg.
Ja. Ek ben nou vir Big Daddy gevra het want ek volg hom op YouTube en hy het 'n regtig goeie kanaal vir enigiemand wat net 'n anderste point of view wil hoor en ek wil vir hom gevra het of hy dink die oorgrootste meerderheid van EFF members, kom ons sê 85%, of hulle die regte info het, of hulle byvoorbeeld weet wat hulle in Brackenfell gemaak het, behalwe vir die e-mail of WhatsApp wat uitgegaan het en gesê, daar's racism by die skool, ons gaan dit nou, dat hulle actually dink hulle is daar vir 'n goeie doel, hulle dink hulle is daar vir 'n goeie doel, so ek dink net die misinformation wat versprei word, veral daai kant toe is dit merkwaardige krag, jy weet, vir so baie mense om op te daag en ja, die brande en die goed is nogal.
Die mense wat opdaag, het hulle opgedaag vir dit of het hulle opgedaag vir die streetwise toe?
Ek wil nou net sê, jy moet jouself die vraag vra, hoeveel supporters het die EFF in enige area waar hulle betoog? Want onthou, ek het omtrent 15 busse getel. Okay, en dit was toe ek daar was. Ek was by die protest gewees Vrydag. Ek het nie rooi klere aangehad nie, maar ek was
I
daar.
was gonna ask now.
So ek het
You bloody agent. You bloody agent, get out of here.
Het jy 'n EFF voetjie, wees eerlik.
Ek het 'n EFF voet, maar jy kan dit koop op die webwerf ook. Maar ek het dit in 'n duurder prys gekoop. Anyway.
Staff discount.
Nee, ek het dubbel betaal daarvoor. Ek is nie 'n lid nie. Jy moet jouself die vraag vra, hoeveel support het hulle regtig? Okay.
Wel, hulle het 15% in die land.
Well, apparently
10. Minder is 10.
So jy moet jouself die vraag vra, hoeveel support het hulle? Byvoorbeeld in 'n plek kom, let's call it in Brackenfell. Hoeveel support het hulle? Want as jy 15 busse se mense moet aanry. Okay? En taxis. En dis wat ek getel het teen lunch. Okay? Toe het daar nog ingekom. En jy moet na die omliggende areas toe gaan om mense te betaal om te kom deelneem. Mense wat hulle voel 'n absolute koue ronde blou 0 vir jou, maar jy betaal hulle, so hy het nou kos vandag. Okay?
Dis eintlik baie sad, né?
Jy moet jou ja, dit is, maar
Dit is
dit is
baie,
hoe
baie
hulle dit
sad.
exploit. Dit
Ja,
is
ja.
hoe hulle dit exploit. Verstaan?
Ja, dis hartseer.
Maar afgesien daarvan moet ek vir julle ouens net sê op 'n ligter noot, het daai area van Brackenfell 'n lekker ekonomiese inspuiting gekry.
Wel, ek weet. Hier is die vraag wat meer belangrik is as dit. Wat vir jou moet bang maak? Wat vir my bang maak? Verkiesingsdag.
Ja.
R50 koop jou stem.
Ja.
R50 gaan jy R50 in 'n T-shirt gaan jy jou stem koop. Hoe moeilik is dit om 'n
verkiesing te wen?
Hoe moeilik is dit om verteenwoordiging te kry wat nie regtig verteenwoordigend is nie.
Nie vir alles dit R50 kos. Ek kan vir jou nou beloof dit gaan
R50 in die
dit is
leefbelofte van land.
Ja, en dit is ongelooflik lucrative vir die ou wat gaan wen.
Ja.
Want ja, nie net kry die party seker 'n groot gedeelte van wie kry geld.
Jy is 'n beheer van die land.
Ja.
Ons het gesien hoeveel was staatskaping werd vir die vorige bedeling. Jy praat van meer geld as wat jy kan imagine.
Ja.
So yeah, it's a bit scary, Mark, if you think of it.
That's why I don't really know what to say to it. Look, it's not like it's a new technique, is it? I mean,
No.
it's not like political
Tried
parties
and
haven't been.
trusted old school maniere.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it happening now, and I suppose we're shocked by it. But I mean, what's different from promising houses?
Wel, jy moet
Or
onthou
promising jobs?
die ironie daarvan is dat hulle die ding in die gang gesit, but even if that gets passed, the houses are going to go to the ANC cronies. Nou wat gaan hulle dan doen?
They're screwed, yeah. It's all just very sad at the end of the day.
It is net,
But if you want to really, really see how sad and hoe die propaganda agter daai ding sit, as jy regtig dit wil kyk, dan moet jy en no shit, ek praat nie nou met julle strontie. Okay? Die EFF het 'n boekklub. Okay? De reine waarheid. Okay? En jy kan dit op hulle webwerf gaan
Yeah, it's on the site, that's right.
Okay?
Yeah.
En op hulle webwerf, as jy na die boekklub, dis nou nie Tanzaniese boekklub van Woensdaagaande nie, maar as jy daai boekklub gaan kyk van die lys dokumente wat daar is, dan is dit solid propaganda. Nee? Dit is die tipe propaganda. Ek meen jy hoor hierdie woorde white monopoly capitalist, Europeans, hierdie white invaders,
radical economical.
Ja, hierdie tipe woorde is presies die woorde wat in daai propaganda staan. So dis die enigste goeders. Dis hoekom, soos wat jy nou die dag vir daai ou vraag gevra het, as jy vir enige EFF lid 'n vraag vra, dan het hy presies dieselfde sinnetjies wat hy oor en oor sê. Okay? En dit is presies daai propaganda wat op daai blad is.
Die standaard go-to antwoord is
Absoluut.
you're a racist.
Ja, en jy kan dit lees, jy kan sien daar's 2 boeke daarop. Een is 'n
Moerse boekklub.
Very doubtfully, dis 'n baie weird akademiese gedeelte wat ek dink in elk geval geskryf is deur Samuel, is iemand daar in die middel van Afrika. En die ander een is Something About the History of South Africa. Wat as jy dit regtig gaan lees, gaan jy sien
So baie one-sided history.
Nee, dit is nie. Hulle het net die hele boek gelees, hulle het net die indeks gelees. Nee, want regtig, in die indeks praat hulle van die European invaders of iets soos dit. En daar's niks verder nie, maar as jy verder gaan lees, dan wys dit al die migrasiepatrone in Suid-Afrika.
Ja.
Dit is nie net dit nie. Verstaan? So hulle draai hom heeltemal soos wat hulle hom wil draai.
Dis presies wat Siegler gesê het, né?
Dis wat ek
presies
sê,
dit
julle. Dit maak my bekommerd. Dit maak my bekommerd vir ons land en dit pis my af, quite frankly. Regtig waar ek
The thing
in
is
hierdie hedendaagse tyd. Ek meen regtig, ons is 24 jaar 26 jaar later aan regtig waar. Ek het gedink ons land sal verder wees.
Yeah.
En ek is teleurgesteld aan die feit dat ons nie is nie.
Well, it is, but it is though. I think that what's important about these chats, and I sit here as well while you guys talk, and I think to myself, my God, like it's what the hell's going on? But we heard on a few, I think it was 2 episodes back, where we heard that the majority of people aren't walking around going like white scum or like black moron. You know, no one's doing that. It's a small percentile, but it's always the moron that's standing on the pedestal screaming out loud, and then we're going, okay, we're in trouble, we're in trouble. Like that guy that comes to you when you've just written an exam and goes like, you got that answer, right? You know it was this, and you're going, no, no, what? I didn't get that answer. What are you talking about? And now the whole class is talking about how they screwed up that answer. And when the paper comes, you got your mark. It didn't even show
I'll
up.
tell you something now, and it's happened maybe coincidentally since I've been on the show, where you literally make a point. I try to make a point when you go into a supermarket or a shop, and you try and feel the vibe. Is it really bad? Is it? And I can honestly tell you now that you
It's
make
not.
jokes with the cashier and the car guard and the petrol attendant, and they treat me like a
It's the
customer.
silent majority.
And I just don't get it.
Dis die stil gematigde mense wat nie soos mal mense hard rondloop en skree nie.
Do you know
Ek
why?
dink dit is wel op en neerkom.
Do you know why everyone laughs at Russell Peters and Trevor Noah when he says these things? And he stands up there in front of millions of people and he talks about how funny white people are when we, buy jelly and stuff like that. And he goes by everyone laughs. Nobody turns to each other and goes like, God, Trevor's awful. How can he say that about us? Because the truth is,
we are funny.
We are funny. I got to say, and I'm not going to mention what my wife buys and stuff like that now because she's watching the show. So, but there are things that we do. Like I can only talk about myself as a white person and say, but there are things that we do that are like really funny, really, really funny, and it's okay to laugh at that. It's fine.
Yeah.
The problem is, and I mean, I got to say, the politics that get spoken, even on the show, where the guys come up and they it's like a platform and they start chatting. Media is the same, we watch that and we go, oh, okay, all right, well, this is how people talk and this is how things go. And then people start to step away and go, well, we'll let them do that. And we'll just we're being downtrodden and this is what's going on in politics. The police don't know what they're doing. The lawyers don't know what they're doing, whatever. The sad truth is that if we could just get the people that are talking just to talk normally, no more like okay, I'm gonna call him out now, Mr. Gaum. Like he's very... and God, I hope this isn't hate speech according to what the law says, but
no worry.
But the man,
according to them, there is no hate speech.
Don't worry,
exactly,
they'll look into it.
They're looking into everything. I mean, everything's like, we'll get back to you. And it's that call center, like you're number 500 in the queue. Just stand by, it's coming. I've got to tell the man, it ain't coming, dude. Like it's not coming. We waited. We've been waiting years. He mentioned a case that. What did he mention that was like from ages ago? And we're finally getting to that one now. Like great, sweet. I'm also restrung this guitar 15 times since you started talking, but it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. Like just like look how we're talking now. It's out there, it's done. I want to get an EFF person, maybe not to sit right in front of me, but like just on the show. Maybe Julius. That would be the best one because he's the head. And stop preaching at us, man. Stop like the people did this and this is what. Just sit down. Give the man like 30 beers and let him chill the hell out. Or someone give him a Zol and just calm the mother down. And then and let's go. All right, bro. What's the problem? What's the matter? Like, did mom hurt you? What's the problem? You know what I mean? Where did daddy touch you? Like, what's the problem? And just get on that and just tell us the damn truth, for fuck's sakes. Like, that's all we want to hear,
Exactly. I completely agree with you. Okay, so...
Ek gaan net een ding vra, want ek weet ons moet afsluit. Hoe ver in 'n politieke omgewing soos ons in, wanneer kan iemand soos letterlik die president 'n parlementslid en leier van 'n ander politieke party inroep en sê vir hom, "Buk papa, nou dis tyd vir 'n moerse pak slaa." Verstaan jy wat ek probeer vra is wanneer is dit
wettiglik?
Ja, nie is wettiglik nie, waar hy net soos hy is die hoof van die kant van die land, waar jy net sê tot hier toe en nie verder nie. Is dit regtig so pedanties, polities korrek dat als letterlik net gelos word totdat mense self begin 'n hand in.
Maar weet jy wat is goed van programme soos hierdie en dit jy weet ek en jy praat al lank voor die koms van WimTV en ek is baie trots dat hierdie vanaand die 14de program is alreeds en ek voorspel dat hierdie nog baie ver gaan, maar die punt van die saak is ek wou nog altyd 'n platform gehad het waar ek en jy ander opinies hoor en ander mense se denkwyses verstaan want ons beweeg binne ons kringetjie. Ons wees nou maar eerlik. Jy het jou kring en dit is jou kring waarin jy beweeg. Ek het nou die dag, jy moet 'n sommetjie gaan doen. Jy moet eintlik gaan uitwerk watter persentasie van jou lewe spandeer jy in die afstand tussen jou huis en jou werk. Jy sal baie bang raak. Want jy spandeer 95% van jou dag, van jou lewe. Spandeer jy binne hierdie kokonnetjie van 5 km of 10 km of hoe ver die werk is. En dit is vir my, want nou, ek en jy word nooit blootgestel aan anders denkende mense as ons nie. Nou sit ons, ek het verlede week 'n paar keer myself bloediglik vererg vir Malakaya. Wat ek gedink het, weet jy wat, ek moes sit in my composure hou, want ek moes vir myself sê, ek moet na sy standpunt luister, want ek moet probeer verstaan hoekom dit is waar hulle is, of waar hy is waar hy is, en sy argument probeer verstaan. En dit is hoekom daar's op die radio die gesprek wat ek met hom gehad het, het ek 3 keer vir hom gevra, wat is die nommer? Hoeveel mense mag julle hê? Want ek wou 3 keer gehad het dat hy dit moet sê, sodat daar nie enigsins, ons het almal geweet daar gaan nie 100 mense opdaag nie. As jy nie 100 mense by jou party wil hê, dan nooi jy jou 100 pelle. Jy gaan nie en jy maak 'n aankondiging op die radio en sit advertensie in die koerant, almal moet kom nie. Dan hou jy dit mos nou binne daai sirkel. So ons het geweet, ons het dit almal geweet, en daar was mense wat vir my gesê het, maar jy weet, hulle gaan nie net 100 wees. Ons weet dit. Ek wou dit op rekord gehad het. Ek wou gehad het dat hy dit moet sê, sodat daar nie agterna kan enige twyfel wees in die feit dat hy geweet het nie, of dat hulle geweet het. En daar was nie 'n vertolking van dit nie. Dit was wat daar gestel is deur die hof, dit was wat toegestaan is. Hulle het dit geweet, hy het dit erken, hy het dit 3 keer gesê. Daar kan nie enige misinterpretasie wees nie.
Ja, dis 'n solid nommer.
Dis 'n solid nommer, dis dit. Maar die feit van die saak is, gesprekke soos hierdie maak dat ek ook dinge uit 'n ander aspek af begin sien. Maar die nice ding vir my is, you know what, ons is almal gematigde mense. En like you say, Mark, not everyone's dad touched them anyway. So, ons is net almal gewone mense, wat gewone agtergrond het, ons het gewone skool toe gaan, ons het gewone sport gedoen. Ons love musiek.
Lekker by 'n braai of by 'n konsert.
Can we just not get back to the fucking music?
Ek het een keer dit ding gelees wat hy gesê het. Hy sê, being laughed at and being inconvenienced is not the same as being oppressed. Okay? En dit het nogal by my redelik diep geslaan. Being inconvenienced of as iemand vir jou lag of whatever, dit beteken nie jy's nou oppressed nie, daar's 'n moeëse verskil.
Ja, daar is. En is tyd dat ons daai verskille begin.
Want jy maak die regte oppressed persoon se argument heeltemal afgewater.
Yeah. Look, Hitler didn't hurt the Jews' feelings.
Yeah.
I'm sure he did, but he did way more than that. It was way more than that.
Correct.
That's the difference.
Okay, dis tyd vir die pranks, julle. Dis tyd vir die pranks.
Nee, ons moet huis toe gaan, hè. Dit is ook nou al fakulteit, né?
Take a pass, hard pass on that.
Sorry, dit was 'n lang program vanaand, maar weet jy wat, ek dink dit was nodig. En dit het daar's mense wat hierdie goed wil van hulle sisteme afkry, en ek weet Brackenfell is kwaad, en ek ken dit. Ek verstaan heeltemal hoekom. Ek is ook kwaad. Want weet jy wat, my regte is ook aangetast. Ek kon nie Vrydag dorp toe gaan nie. Ek kon nie 'n drink in die bar gaan drink nie. Pis my.
Ons lunch is gecancel.
Lunch is gecancel. Kon nie in Brackenfell gaan lunch nie. Okay, so tyd vir die prank, julle. Wat gebeur? Ek weet nie, ek het geen idee wat gebeur nie, weet julle.
Ek het nie idee nie, maar ek dink hierdie mannetjie links van my.
Okay,
hy is met
so,
'n kop
okay.
in
Yes, you
links.
look so smug. Look at
So
you.
so ek is ingetrek. En jy weet ek sal nooit teen jou draai nie. Maar hulle het my geoffer dat ek dan vry is. So toe vat ek dit. Dadelik. So
Fucking
sorry.
agent.
So jy moet net vir my hierdie blinddoekie aansit. Staan gou vir my op.
Nee, my vriendjie, onthou net een
Nee, nee.
ding, né? Jy
Lyk my
daar's
dis
daar's
net Simon op
daar's
hierdie
jy
plek.
jy
Niks.
weet daar's 'n broukode.
Ja. Niks om oor bekommerd te wees nie. Staan gou vir ons op.
Daar was een.
Daar was 'n broukode gewees, né?
En ons sal weer een wees hierna, maar
Nee,
net
ons sal
vir net
nie.
vir nou.
Nee.
Okay, so met die COVID,
Ja.
né?
Moet ek op jou hoes?
Die sintuie word mos eers aangetast.
Ja.
Né? So ons wil net gou toets. Ons wil net die dinge toets.
How are you courting already?
Daar kort
Seriously.
sy klaar, nog eers daar is
Nee,
niks
daar's niks.
Where did your dad touch you?
So,
Seriously, what's
ons-
going on?
Dis man.
Sudden gag.
Jy maak my nog meer
So
na.
ons gaan begin by die reuk. Ons gaan kyk
O,
net
nee,
net
Here, moet my
nee,
nie-
nee,
asseblief,
nee,
o,
niks gaan jy
Jesus.
byt nie. Niks gaan jy byt nie. Dis net
Nee, maar ek gaan kots, né?
verskillende
sal nie-
dis verskillende reuke, dis al.
Vat my computer weg.
Jy ruik net en jy sê vir my wat jy ruik, is al.
Ek het 'n vol maag.
Okay, is
3
fyn. Is
protein
fyn.
shakes
Hierso.
in.
Hy's vir
Dis nie
jou.
op jou, né?
Ruik. Wat ruik jy?
Mosterd.
Nice one.
Nice.
Ek het die COVID nie.
Is dit voor of na die maal?
Ja, maar daar's drie vlakke. Okay? Volgende een.
Peanut butter dink ek.
Smooth or crunchy? Joke, dit maak nie saak nie. Okay, is enetjie.
Yes.
Wat ruik jy?
Ek dink dit is soos garlic of iets.
Ruik
Nee, wag.
maak seker.
Wat garlic.
Dis ruik nie so lekker nie, né? Is dit in Wim se yskas gewees hier? Hierdie is garlic. Ek dink is garlic,
Is dit
maar
garlic?
ek weet nie wat se garlic dit is nie.
Okay, cool. Volgende een.
O, jene.
Wat die hel was dit? Daai was nie deel van dit nie.
Ja, ek moet nou 'n bietjie kamer verlaat, né? Want
Dink is te laat vir kamer verlaat.
Moenie, ek het nogal 'n sensitiewe maag, né? Gelukkig het ek my gymsak met die onderbroeke nog in my kar.
Ek het nooit in my lewe 'n volgroeide man gehoor soos 'n vrouskies.
I mean, I sing high, but that was a note I've never heard. I mean, my cat didn't even make that noise when you stood on its foot.
Yes,
That's
man,
what they call-
Jy al jou kat gesteek.
That's what they
Of
call
gepraat
it.
of gedink.
That was incredible.
Shit, my
Are you okay?
That's what they call it E flat major diminished.
Flat major. Wow.
Jeepers.
That's talent.
Kom ons skok vir Simi. Lekker.
Ek hou van hierdie tipe pranks. Ons besluit so net vir die tyd is Simon en is dit. Jy moet 'n fantastiese aand hê. Sluit aan by ons Saterdag vir die biltong sessie. Dit is hey, dis tydloos. Dis die laaste tydloos vertoning van alle tye. Soos join ons as jy nog nie 'n kaartjie. As jy dit nie kon sien nie, jammer, dit was uitverkoop en daar was nie 'n kaartjie available nie. Dit is regtig die laaste tydloos. Ons maak dit klaar. Ons doen dit op 'n goeie noot. So dis 'n goeie show. Kry jou kaartjie net WimTV.net vir die laaste tydloos vertoning van alle tye.
Is ons daarna dan tydloos?
Julle is dan tydloos daarna. Maar moenie worry nie, ons werk aan iets anderster vir volgende jaar. Goeienaand julle, dit was 'n awesome aand. Baie dankie vir die saamkuier. Dankie vir jou input by die show en dankie dat julle comments lewer. Dankie dat julle elke week kyk. Word deel van die WimTV gesprek. Goeienaand.
Years and my life is still trying to get up that great big hill of hope for a destination. I realized quickly when I knew that I should, this world was made of this brotherhood of man, for whatever that means. And so I cry each time when I'm lying in bed, just to get it all out what's in my head. And I'm feeling a little peculiar. So I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get it. Hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, what's going on? And I try. Oh my God, do I try? I try all the time. In this institution, and I pray. Oh my God, do I pray? I pray every single day for revolution. So I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed just to get it on what's in my head, and I'm feeling a little peculiar. And so I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I scream the top of my lungs, what's going on? And I said, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, what's going on? And I said, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, what's going on? 25 years, my life is still trying to get up that great big hill of hope for a destination.
Dankie dat jy die WimTV show ondersteun. Vir meer kontroversiële gesprekke gaan na wimtv.net.